Welcome to the Actually Connecting podcast. We have Hidefusa Okabe here today with us. You want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here, Dan.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Hide. I just finished my second year in the clinical neuropsychology program at the University of Utah here in Salt Lake City. I do research about how to measure cognitive control and effort while doing neuropsychological assessment. And Dan and I connected when I really enjoyed his photography on Instagram. It was very impressive. So I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we're talking today about Headspace and some meditation stuff and just really cool things that we talked about the first time we spoke. And I was like, man, the first conversation we had maybe 2 hours, I think?
Yeah.
It was awesome. So now that we had a chance to figure out what each other is about, he travels all the time and he's seen a lot of places in the world. I've done the same. And I wanted to get us together because he understands emotional IQ really well. I love the emotional IQ side, consciousness. And I figured because he's teaching on a lot of this stuff and he's working with a lot of influences and influencers, I thought he'd be an amazing person on the show. And this is a great way to start. About me, my name's Dan Brew, and I have danbrew.com and then a company called Digital Audit Pros. danbrew.com focuses on emotions and the podcast and how people connect together. But that's not what this is about. We're here about meditation and how you can balance all of those things together. Let's talk meditation. So how did you start using Headspace, Hide? When did you hear about it?
I started using Headspace about 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing clients at the University Counseling Center, and you have to be very calm. You have to be able to contain other people's emotions, even if something discloses something that's very strong and emotional and could be potentially upsetting and moving for them as a major life experience, whether it be trauma or grief or depression. One has to really be able to contain that emotion and reflect upon it and validate it and really help the client process it. And for me, while I had worked with veterans in the past and also populations like who have autism, it was a challenge, as is for many budding clinicians. So I started meditating for 2 minutes just in the morning, using these simple instructions that I printed off from the internet. And then I realized I needed something more guided and simple and basic and rudimentary, like training wheels. So I subscribed to Headspace for about a month, and I was skeptical and I was not sure if it was going to work, but I really felt the effects of mindfulness, just being relaxed, calm, grounded in the moment, and a lot of the benefits that people have enjoyed worldwide. So I've been using that for about 6 months, about 20 to 40 minutes a day. And as you had mentioned, I feel that this is a beautiful synergy of technology and hundreds of years of history merging and being delivered in a portable, efficacious platform across the world.
Totally agree. Time out, I'll edit all this. I'm going to just do audio in this one.
Okay.
Because the video is making me look this way. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. So you're good. So this is 100% audio from here on out. I'm down with that if you're down with that.
Okay. And if we do decide to do something more visual, I can get some kind of like background,
Yeah, perfect.
For the equipment.
Yep.
We'll see how this works for both of us. But I foresee it becoming a very exciting, cool thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that makes things a lot easier in regards to moving forward with this.
I have a friend who's relatively, I think, more extrovert than me, and he also left the PhD program, and he gave me his clothes, and this is one of his lucky shirts that I wear when I want to feel extroverted.
I love it. Yeah. So in regards to being extroverted, introverted, when you dress your style, what is your style versus an extroverted style?
An extroverted style, I will wear things that fortify my confidence. I wear boots from Italy. I wear diesel jeans. I wear diesel shirts.
Got it.
Cologne. Everything that gives me confidence.
Totally. It's interesting you said that this video process, I've had to learn what makes me confident. A lot of times I would wear business clothes and I would wear dress downs to places, and I've stopped kind of. And while people do look at me differently, I know if I'm the most confident self, I might not be coming across as most effectively to you, but this is the world we live in, and I'm not going to play anymore that way. It's just not, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you'll see me get weird.
Yeah. It's self-regulation skills, you know?
True that. Okay, so with meditation, what would you say meditation is? For me, meditation was one day someone said that I was supposed to close my eyes and that I was supposed to calm myself and kind of sit there for 10 minutes and let everything just decompress. But for me, someone who's terrified of the dark in a lot of ways, and it's not that I'm actually scared of the dark, but I'm scared of my mind and what my mind does in the dark, because it's just racing. I never understood that meditation and that process was supposed to make that go away. And it took a really long time for me to actually make that happen. Did you have something similar? Like, what was meditation for you through that?
I can definitely relate to that. And I'm also still learning what meditation is. I'm far from anybody who is like a practitioner. I'd say I'm an amateur person.
When did you start?
I started last year in December. And
nice.
So like many, I had this strong idea that meditation was don't think anything. If some feeling comes up, thought comes up, suppress it. And which was dissuaded actually by Andy Headspace. You have to let go of the thoughts and detach yourself from the feelings and other things that the mind latches onto and embraces. If a thought or emotion comes up and then you identify with that thought in some way, whether it be you're worried about a test that's coming up, or you are really hungry, or you feel like you should be in the room, your mind becomes imbued with that thought and you are not present anymore. You're immersed in that thought. And sometimes it's not easy to recognize when one has become imbued with that thought because they get carried away. So as the founder of Headspace tells everybody, just let go of the thought and come back to the breath. So letting go seems to be a primary principle in meditation, I think.
It's interesting with Headspace, because he does say that. He goes, let go of the thought, and then he always has you come back to just keep focusing. And then every once in a while in his like awesome British accent, he'd be like, you might have gotten distracted at this point. If that's happened, just make your way on back to being focused.
Right.
And it's true, because you kind of just get lost in thought, and you get lost in like, oh, this is what I have to do today, or like, this is what I don't have to do today. And all of a sudden it's a gentle reminder. Right. I really like that. What's really cool, they give a little cartoon. We're so prone to TV and media. They give this little cartoon about what you're about to experience, and then it leads you into it. Makes it almost a cool way to meditate. If there is I know it's a trigger word, but I think it makes it very gamified.
Yeah, it makes it very user-friendly.
How does it work is my question, because you know a little bit more about that meditation, because have you just done Headspace?
Yeah, just Headspace.
Did you ever try before Headspace?
Yes, briefly, and I didn't really feel like it had worked, so I didn't continue it. I used to work in New York City for the night shift, and I was meditating, but I didn't really feel like I had any benefits, so I just quit.
How long did it
I
take?
didn't understand what benefits would feel like, what it would feel like to benefit from meditation.
What would you say was the first benefit you experienced?
Um,
Once you did it, so the first time you didn't get any benefits. The second time was with the app Headspace, and then
right.
when was the first time you were like, oh, this actually just helped me a little bit?
So for me, when I was told to focus on the external world, the sounds, the feelings, and then shift that focus to my bodily sensations, that shift in focus for me really made me feel like I was directing my attention in a different way, and it put me in the flow state, in short.
Ooh.
And I never thought that averting or channeling concentration to different directions would have such a profound effect. And then I learned that attention is something that comes out of your consciousness or your mind. So you have to control the mind in order to control attention. And that's something really fundamental that meditation strengthens.
So you mentioned flow state. For those who don't understand flow state, what is that? What are you talking about when you say that?
So the flow state was, I believe, described by a researcher, a Hungarian researcher who was trained in Italy, and his name is Professor Csikszentmihalyi. And the flow state describes feelings when you feel like you're in the moment, you feel pleasure, gratification. It's when you are faced with an equal balance of challenge and novelty. So something isn't too hard, something isn't too easy, it's just right. That requires you to keep on top of the constantly changing circumstance. You have to keep your eye on the ball. And bus drivers, industrial plant workers, a lot of people experience flow states.
Driving is very flow state. When you do a long road trip and you can kind of just zen out, but at the same time your reactions are really, really quick.
Yeah.
And you're kind of on point, and that's very much so, yeah.
And meditation, I think, helps with you to enter the flow state more easily, because the flow state is characterized by being in the moment, being in the present, being immersed and engaged with whatever activities in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you say the attention piece, go back to that. Because if attention's so critical, why is attention critical to that? Because if you're supposed to let go of everything, in my mind, that is attention's like, my attention focuses on something I don't want attention, I want nothingness. How do you have nothingness and? Because that seems intense.
I think that when your mind is focused on your thoughts or emotions, you're not really focused on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Your attention is detached from the present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talked about that last time. That's right. We jumped into different states of flow. The flow state. Experience. You have to experience it. You have to be there in flow.
Right.
You have to, the loving to learn. You have to love and have a passion for what you're doing. Do you think, or does it not matter with flow? I guess you could hate it, but you have to find the joy in whatever you're doing.
Right. Chances are, if you can find something to be really fun and new, you'll be flow. And it won't require you to be focused on that task. If you're distracted, you're probably not going to be enjoying it.
Yep. And then curiosity.
Right. That ties in with novelty.
Mm-hmm. Novelty. Perfect. Drive and determination. You have to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
You have to be in the action state.
Right.
Positivity.
Right.
Think you can have flow and negativity? Can you be mad and be in flow? I don't think so.
Well, I think the flow would be characterized by approach behavior and not avoid behavior.
Oh, okay. What are the differences between those two?
Avoidance would be aversive, and approach would be pleasing. You want to go towards it.
Got it. It's the positive negative, yeah. And then you have to be self-aware and mindful.
Yeah.
Empathetic, a little bit. Finding that balance between mind, body, soul.
Right. If something is too hard for you to do, it's going to be stressful, and you're not going to be able to enjoy it and master it. But if something is too easy, it's also going to be not too engaging and entertaining. So there's a curve in psychology that describes the optimum arousal level. And you want it to be not too easy, not too hard, but just right with respect to arousal.
So Headspace is intriguing because each meditation that I've ever done, I've done a little bit more meditations than just the Headspace one. Headspace was one of the first ones that really worked for me in the sense that it let my mind calm down. I've understood meditation before, but I meditated searching for another dimension or another world more than it was just a sense of calm. So the meditation I first started with was, if you shut your eyes, if you shut your eyes and are you someone that has, when you shut your eyes, it's completely pitch black, or do you have a little bit of light? Have you ever seen light and little flecks of specks of light and stuff?
When I close my eyes? Yeah.
So what I did was you take one of those specks and you zoom in on it. And that speck becomes ingrained, and then there's a lot more within that one.
Right.
And then you zoom in again, and you kind of continue through this until it becomes almost like what I would call a tunnel.
Right.
And as you go through this tunnel, you'll start to feel almost weightless, and you'll feel a pulling forward motion. But at this point in the meditation process, you have to be okay knowing that you're potentially going to leave your body. Like this is and I've never understood the difference between the Headspace one, because it's not like that. Headspace is very much, you're removed, and I'm no longer, and I'm just Zen, and I'm in a really almost a Buddha-like state. Where there's other types that allow you to almost discover who you are. And then there's an additional where you can channel and you can almost utilize different past experiences to help answer certain questions you're looking for. So once you're there in the flow state, that's probably what it is. Once you're in flow state, you then have the ability to go into a little bit more self-discovery once all the nonsense has been removed.
I think you raised several good points. One is that not all meditation types are the same. There are different types of meditation. And the meditation that is provided by Headspace is guided.
Oh, interesting.
Unguided meditation.
Guided versus unguided. Okay, cool.
And another good point that I think you raised is that you need to find out what meditation works best for you. That was something that was also communicated to me at the Salt Lake City Buddhist Temple, where I go every Wednesday, that you have to try a lot of different types, or you might find that the first one you try is perfect, to see which approach works best for you. The instructors there have different approaches that work best for them. Some are more visual, some are more unguided, some are also auditory. Ringing a bell and then having that bell reverberate in your consciousness and focusing on it throughout the 20-minute span.
Like almost an ear pitch tuner?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
And another practitioner has us visualize a marble that is rainbow colored, and it just starts spinning and glowing about 2 inches underneath your navel. And then he asks us to visualize energy flowing from that ball up your chest, up your arms, and then it leaves your fingers. So that's more visual, and it relates to chi, or ki, energy.
Yeah.
So I think you raised those 2 good points, that there are different flavors, and you have to find out which one works best for you. And for a really amateur practitioner like me, I, like you, have also appreciated the guidance of Headspace.
Absolutely. Headspace, I use Headspace a little bit different. When I do a meditation, I would say I usually go unguided. But at night when I'm about to fall asleep and I'm racing and everything is kind of really, really loud, or while I'm taking a shower, there's something about the shower that puts me immediately into flow state. The hot water, I'm sure it's like you said, the feeling, the tactile, you're getting all these things happening, sensory. And then with an additional, like, kind of helping you just really focus in, it's really positive.
So maybe the shower is serving as purpose to focus your attention on those tactile feelings all across your body through the droplets.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we are told to direct our attention on the tactile sensations across the body, but being in a shower, I think, brings our attention to that, directs it.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been in a pool and gone under where your ear is under and you just have that light humming?
Yeah.
And you kind of like immediately zone out and everything else is just so calm. It's the most calm. That's the closest I can explain when you find flow in Headspace meditation.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. And I like that they give you the 2-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, or 15-minute, 20-minute guides.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. What are you trying to gain with meditation? Are you like, what's the end goal for you?
Like everybody else, life is pretty busy, and I have to multitask between several different hats. So it's ultimately to just feel relaxed in social situations, to be able to feel calm and be in the moment when I'm with friends. Very simple stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. Mine is always, I like to discover. I want to figure out how to travel with my mind.
Yeah.
I think it'd be, but that being said, I have to say this, preface this for any of you that are listening out there. This is a little bit hokey, so kind of don't lose me too far. If you are going to try this, really understand that you have to ground yourself. You have to make sure that you're not just searching to search, or you're allowed to find anything you want to find. Go in with a really specific goal. Go in with, if it's guided, you're going to be in good hands. But even if it is guided, understand people use guided meditation as hypnosis. Like, that's a form of it. You never want to fall into someone's, they're just so powerful. So be very aware of what you're using. So far in Headspace, I've been so happy because there's never been anything that felt subliminal or anything like that, where when you're doing it by yourself and it's unguided, those subliminal things can be very, very real. And you can allow yourself to kind of get lost in the journey or the process. And making sure that you do that when you're in a good mindset and you're going in with a positive place is really important. So that's a little warning. Kids, try this at home, but do it safely.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think Andy reminds you to think about why you're doing the meditation. And are you doing it for your friends, or are you doing it to make yourself feel better? Those kinds of things could promote like an unconscious positive or negative tension, which is exactly what you're trying to break away from. So one thing I realized recently was that I was like aspiring to meditate for 20 minutes and I was feeling exhausted and I wasn't looking forward to the meditation sessions. Then I read online very recently that on the Headspace website, you gain a lot of insight if you meditate for a long time, those difficult sessions. But it's better to practice briefer sessions that you enjoy and progressively increase those durations.
We talked about this earlier. The body scans. What are your thoughts about the body scans? When they say a body scan is where you go from the top of your head and you go, I feel this exactly. And then you go down to your ears and you feel what's in there and you feel the front of your forehead and you feel the back of your head. And you're just kind of scanning your whole body to experience. It's not judging. You're just saying, I'm letting it be. And I'm just going to tell myself what I feel. And a lot of times it's incredible. We don't really even understand what we're feeling until we really think about that specific point of our body. We don't do that very often.
Yeah. I think that the body doesn't lie. and how you're feeling is really revealed in how your body is.
Intuition.
You might be able to rationalize that you're not feeling anxious, but then your whole body's like tense. But just acknowledging how your body is tense helps you to, I think, feel less tense.
What is that called when you can recognize your body?
The perception of nonverbal body language.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the emotional intelligence constructs proposed by a professor at Yale.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah.
When you told me that, it was really cool because it is interesting how the flow state kind of can combine all those different types of those experiences and allows you just really start breaking them out very, very easily.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. I love it. I like it. What do you have any future goals? Like what are the current goals you're working on, future goals with the meditation piece?
So I am interested in so I have a lot of different employment experiences, a lot of research experiences, some teaching experience, professional experience working in New York City for a few years, traveling from country to country, and I feel like I want to integrate different parts of myself together. Being a PhD student, I've had to teach as a teaching assistant, see clients as a therapist, and do research, and also be a student. And wearing a lot of different hats has really made me realize that there are parts of myself that I need to integrate more. And I feel like meditation helps me examine kind of the different paradigms that exist in my mind, the different ways of thinking, and how they all converge and connect in the same source.
And it's really cool. Have you ever tried any other apps that have worked like Headspace?
I've tried Insight Timer.
What is Insight Timer?
Which is sort of a free, it's very similar to Headspace, but anybody can, I think that like laymen, people like Andy will upload audio clips for you to listen to. And you can listen to their guided meditations. And I believe there's also a function that lets you play a chime and then have that chime echo or go off every so often. So that would be unguided meditation.
Interesting.
And there are a lot of different practitioners, a lot of different guiders, and I've tried some amazing Insight Timer clips. So that's really helpful, and it's free.
Have you ever tried something called tapping? It's a form of guided meditation.
What does that involve?
Okay, so tapping is where and I don't actually know the psychological principles behind it, but I know when our body experiences something, we start saying something to ourselves, like when you say, I've got money issues, versus I am rich. Like just that's the positive negative. A lot of us understand that and we're working on the positive negative. But what tapping does, when you have it's kind of like EMDR, where you have the actual touch on your body to instill in your brain what you're actually saying. So when you have a guided meditation saying, I am successful, I am rich, money is flowing easily, this is a particular money tapping thing, but you can tap for anything where you're actually touching different points of your body, meridian points, that when you're talking out loud and doing this at the same time, it literally will just start changing your brain chemistry to be able to move towards that positive place that you're looking for. And a lot of this stuff in regards to the universal laws saying you need the action, you need the intention, you need a few of these different pieces. It really kind of puts a lot of it together very easily and very effectively. If you're looking for a guided meditation where it's a little bit more hands-on and you're looking for more just, I don't want to think about it. I'm an action taker. I want to make this change today, right now. That's a really good one. And there's a few good guys. Yeah. Guided meditation tapping.
Yeah, focusing, I think, on different parts of the body is very useful, and tapping facilitates that, it seems.
Yeah. Music has always been a big one for me. I love having the music, but music that doesn't have words. And if it does have words, they're very much not, like I said, influencing. Because what you listen to, what you're digesting, is really what you're experiencing.
Yeah, there was recently, you may have heard it, music that was able to lower anxiety by 60%.
No. What is this?
I believe it's called Weightlessness or Weightless, and it's a piece written by somebody that promoted about 60% reduction in anxiety.
Huge.
By Marconi Union, and I believe there was an empirical study done on that, and I did download it, and a great piece. Could be placebo, but I felt really at peace when I listened to it, and there was a certain vastness to it, a frequency. I think we had this discussion earlier.
Frequency, good word.
Yeah, there was some vastness. If you listen to a lot of celestial music, like if you go to a planetarium and look at the stars, the music there is just like very vast and expansive, and that's associated with an affect called like awe, essentially. And just being in the mountains, looking at vast landscapes, that promotes awe, and that's associated with reduction, that like calmness and benefits mentally and physiologically.
I think that's awesome. Celestial music, I've only done whale music, like whale noises. I went through like a 1 month stage where I listened to whale noises at night. And then eventually it got weird, but I had weird dreams and I decided to turn it off and move on to the next. Finding Nemo dreams. So have you ever heard of singing bowls?
No, what's that?
Singing bowls are awesome. So the Tibetan singing bowls, and I'm sure there's other types, but you have this thing that's like a handle and you rub it around the bowls. You know how with a finger in a wine glass?
Yeah.
It makes a really cool noise and they can do songs and stuff? Well,
like miscongeniality.
Miscongeniality, exactly.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a really big marble bowl and they're tuned to each octave. So you've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you collect sets. So when you rub this hammer or whatever they call around it, it makes this incredible ringing, just deep vibration, and they call it sound healing.
Yeah.
And it's where they tune kind of your frequency with the frequency of that bowl so you can start like figuring out where it's all off. Because if you're bouncing all over the place, after you do one of these singing bowls, your ears and your body hear it, and when you test your frequency again, it'll be a solid line instead of jumping all over the place with your circadian rhythms.
Okay.
It was really cool that I talked to this guy. He was a healer and he did all the sorts of this stuff, but it was really cool to hear and see the science behind it. And it kind of reminds me of some of this stuff.
Yeah, it almost sounds like biofeedback.
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Biofeedback. I'll do a little bit of research on that one.
Which sound seems pleasant to you? Which sound seems aversive?
Mm-hmm. What are they using biofeedback for right now?
Increasing focus, increasing calm. So young children, from the limited literature that I did read, young children would be given a video game, and then in order to control the character in the video game, they would have to think about something that would make them happy. Wow. And if they had to jump, like Mario, they would think about something happy, and then the character would jump over an obstacle. So that would provide the child an opportunity to flex the muscles that increase their own happiness.
Mm-hmm. What's their end goal?
To teach children to regulate their own emotions, I believe. Self-regulation.
Do you think it's speaking of children regulating emotions, exactly what you're saying, and also talking about Headspace, do you think it's positive, the social media stuff and the fact that they're using devices so young? And this is just the norm we live in today. Do you feel like it's a positive thing that meditation is being brought to them through technology via meditation being brought from a real human being the touch and all those things. Is there a difference, or is it just at least they're starting and that's the positive, and there's some positive out of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that the research study that I read had teachers facilitate a meditation session in an elementary school classroom. So that wasn't using a smartphone app.
Mm-hmm.
That was guided by a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And if students learn to self-regulate, control themselves, control their emotions, distract themselves, then I think that would have a lot of positive benefits for development. I echo the sentiment of a lot of other parents about their stance on electronics and child development. These children are still developing their neural networks and their brains, and I feel that they have a very high curiosity in things, and I feel that if children are only given an opportunity to communicate through electronics, then what needs to be developed to communicate effectively in a social context from face to face might not develop as well. Mm-hmm. So if I had a child, just like Steve Jobs said, I would not give them an electronic device up until a certain age.
Do you know what ages would that be, in your opinion? Just outside speculation, no.
Maybe late elementary school.
Which is
10.
10? 8 to 10? Do you think by doing that, there's a harm where it's a bigger learning curve, or do you think the learning curve of technology is just pretty simplistic nowadays and it won't be an issue because it's just everywhere?
I think that's a very complex question, but it's very interesting. Irrespective of learning to use a device, there's the social component. I think you and we grew up in an era where there was no technology, mm-hmm. and then now there is technology, mm-hmm. Used to communicate, social media, Twitter, Instagram, which is amazingly how we met. So mm-hmm. We have learned, I think, to use this technology, but relative to digital natives who were born after 2000, Generation Z, they probably communicate using technology much better. So they are acculturated in a society socially to use technology in it to communicate in ways that are much more intimate, I think, than somebody who later acquired them. Like if we see our parents using text messaging or social media, we can see that they're communicating, but there's some things that are a little bit off.
Right.
So by having children use social media much later, I think that they may lag behind their peers socially. But whether they can learn to use it or not, I have no question. But if your brain grows in concert with the society that embraces technology, I think that...
great point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And it is. I think once the culture's there, we're so happy to go where the culture is going. And it's so right. quick because, aka, look at social media.
Right. So I think that your idea of traveling, emotion, meditation, technology, meeting people, I think it's very interesting because we're living in an era where we can use technology to meet a lot of different people. And even if you're in Colorado, I'm in Salt Lake City, mm-hmm. we can have a conversation as though we're having a beer right now and talking. Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to use technology. We need to be able to communicate emotions. We need to be able to think humanistically, but also very technologically savvy. I think there's a lot of potential in technology. It brings people together, but at the same time, as we spoke earlier, when we were planning this, I think that it's important to understand what your agenda is and not drown in technology. Right. If you're drowning in tweets, if you're drowning in notifications on Facebook and checking up every single notification, then I think you're being eclipsed by technology. But if right. you're seeking out something that you really want and you have your own agenda and you use technology and you're not used by it, I think that would be an ideal situation.
A tool, not a lifestyle. And if you choose the lifestyle, it's because your lifestyle is in person. That's the end goal, or that is what you're accomplishing through it. It's interesting because in the past 40 years, really, we've lived in this industrial age where we've pushed kind of like you go through your 9 to 5, you do everything that you do. And we're now getting this place where robots and AI are doing things better than we can do them, because we used to base things like memorization. We used to base it. And now you can literally, I just saw you go on Google real quick and you're good. Like, it's as simple as that. It's not that you don't know it. It's you have the thought process ability to adapt and then tie the bigger pieces together. And that's where we have to start focusing our attention. And I think understanding that flow state and understanding emotions and understanding how to still have the IQ where you can memorize, where you can understand emotions, where you do have physical strength and all these things balancing back and forth to really live a life that's just balanced. We've forgotten what balance feels like. I think it is so guardrail to guardrail to guardrail. And unfortunately, we've been forced there. We've been pushed into these guardrails because of culture. And it's literally our job to change culture and kind of dictate what it's going to be for the next 50 years. And it happens today as social media rules and regulations are being done. And the reason we're talking about this is because I believe when you're stuck in this technology loop and when you're stuck in this like anxiety feeling where everything is just kind of attacking on you, because it's what ads do, ads, pop-ups, things, where we don't even see them anymore, but they're there, they're getting us. Whether you know it 6 times, 6 ads, I have you on a sale. You might not see the ad, but once you've seen it 6 times, you're clicking on it. And that's what Facebook, they understand this. They've built it this way. I think meditation and getting into this meditation game is going to allow people to unlock and unbreak that connection. It's so critical.
So I totally agree about that. It's really interesting, as you said, that something as ancient as meditation would be much more important in today's day and age in helping us restore our humanity.
Isn't that the truth? Use the machine against the machine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were traveling to Iceland, I understand on your website you had beautiful photos of Iceland.
Yeah, thank you.
When you were abroad, did you feel like you were in a flow state? You were in a meditative stance. When I go abroad, I realize so many new things. My body and mind responds automatically to everything that I realize, wow, this is a different country and I'm just conditioned to react in a certain way. You learn a lot about yourself. But could you tell me a little bit more about what your experiences in Iceland were meditatively?
It was fascinating because, so Iceland alone, I'm from the United States and I've traveled to different places, Australia, to Greece, to Mexico, all these different places that you see. Iceland was the first place where I went and there were not a lot of phones. There were not a lot of, when people were there, they were enjoying, but it was also the first place where there were very few rules. It was, if you do something wrong, you're going to die. It's not this whole, we have a rule because it's going to be a fine, because we need to make money, because if we don't make money off of you, we no longer have a job anymore. Like, that is such backward. And then, because we're getting too many tickets, we no longer can actually protect the real thing that's going on, which is the real. So it was such an interesting, no question, the second you touch a vacation or that new thing, you're in flow state. It feels awesome. What's interesting is I went to the Philippines and we were not in flow state. We got through it all and we were just going along for the ride. It was like a crazy roller coaster. But at the end, it was stressful. I think there was some anxiety. But looking back on the pictures, we were laughing. There was a lot of fun. It was such an intriguing mind split from what is culture and what we're used to and not having clean water, not having fresh, good food that you can eat that's safe, versus America where you go to a grocery store and you have all these things and stuff, versus Iceland, which is, look outside. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And there's just nothing. There's no fences. It's just beauty. And you do get flow state. That was really interesting to me to see how different, where people were reserved at first, but once you opened up a little bit, they were so warm. It was so warm because then the reserve comes from, we're so used to seeing nature. I think we're supposed to be a little bit secluded from things. And now we get to experience a different culture and they're ready to jump into flow state with you because they're intrigued. That's why I love travel. The culture brings so much understanding and knowing to who you are. It changes you every time, and you always come out better.
So for somebody who is interested in traveling to a foreign country and wants to maximize this flow state, I think you just mentioned that there was this component of aesthetic appreciation or beauty. Just you felt awe of the beautiful landscapes. And you also felt, it seems like a curiosity emotionally to connect with the local people. Do you have other recommendations you would have for others who are looking to travel and enjoy their travel experiences you did?
So when I was pretty young, I recognized that we are sensory beings. Like everything, our five senses. And we say that very easy. Oh, we have five senses because we know it. We memorize that knowledge. But we forget that it is real. We have the ability to look at things that are pleasing to our eye, if that's what design is. We have things that sound good. That's music, and we love music. And a lot of times we just listen to the radio because it's on and we're bored. But when you find those things that song that just makes you dance and just really, every time you hear it, just brightens your mood. You can do that with every single sense to the extreme. Now, a lot of times when there's a negative, we get hit and you'll cope with something and you have to cope. And because the senses are too heightened. So I think when you go into nature, it's the one time where you feel at home. At least for myself, I personally, and I know nature can be scary. I've met a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at anyone. I've met a lot of people who are terrified of just the smallest little bug because they don't know. It's just an education thing. You don't know if that bug can kill you. And because you don't know. It can be
surprising to see such macho people jump up like 10 meters by seeing a little beetle or something.
Absolutely. It is surprising. And it's one of those, by understanding that this world around us is not here to harm us, and what we put out into the world comes back, and by going out and choosing, everywhere we live has beauty. Like in Texas, you can go out to the middle of the desert and that silence is beautiful in itself. There's a lot of things that are there in Texas when you go, and there's just beautiful places. You can find, I promise you, within a 50-mile radius, somewhere that you can go hike. That's awesome. That will get you out into nature. And I think that is the first step into getting closer to that travel piece. Because the more you're getting into that, the more you start realizing what your priorities should be. You want your priorities to be to allow yourself to experience the life you want to live. And all those senses not being overwhelmed, being really positively nurtured so you can become a better person. We're technology in ourselves, and we can continue growing. We forget that we're not limited to what we learned in school. We're not limited to what we learned in wherever. You can move past that stage, but it's really, really difficult. And in my opinion, it comes through healing, and healing comes through understanding emotions.
I agree.
And I think that comes down to meditation to understand your emotions.
Yes.
That internal, self-reflection piece.
Yes, I agree. You raise several good points. One is that technology is not very sensory oriented. We consume a lot of things from vision. We look at things.
You're right.
We're sitting in front of our computers, absorbing a lot of information and a lot of visual things mostly, and auditory things. But it's pretty devoid of tactile sensations. I do agree with you that it's really important to feel, and nature allows us to disconnect. And just as many people have experienced, not bringing your cell phone, your smartphone into nature, really helps you hone in on your bodily sensations, something that a lot of people, including myself, have, I think, been disconnected with because we rely so much on technology.
I just heard something about natural light versus the pushed light. When you look at a computer screen, there's actually light that's being pushed into your eye. It's versus the light that's natural, which is you're absorbing and it's helping you heal. Sunshine, fresh water, clean air is really the cure for everything.
Yeah.
They've tried to hide it. They don't want you to know. But if you do that with a little bit of exercise in there, a little bit of emotional well-being and balance, you can literally cure yourself from anything. And that's me telling you, because I've lost my large intestine and I am now no longer on medicine. I no longer go to the hospital, and it's really cool. But I can tell if I sit in front of a computer and on my phone, I feel myself start to kind of evolve almost. Where if I'm sitting in the sun, I am rejuvenated and re-energized.
Yeah.
It's so cool and understanding that, because we're like little bugs and we go towards the light. Have you ever seen Bug's Life?
No.
The Disney movie?
I've seen it. It seems really cute. Yeah.
There's a scene where one of the bugs goes, "Don't go into the light." It's one of the bug zappers. "Don't go to the light. I can't help it." And he gets zapped. And I feel like humans are the same way with TV.
Yeah.
Like there's always been those times where you go up right to the TV screen and that your parents say, no, don't go that close. It's going to hurt your eyes.
Yeah.
And now we've got these devices that we just put right up to our faces all day long.
Yeah.
And we've kind of forgotten that there's two different types of light. There's two different types of things that are happening.
Yeah.
I want to go back really quickly because I think it's so important helping kids get this information. How do mothers and fathers help their kids get the right meditation to start kind of understanding this balance? And it can just be because I have a buddy that's doing it every night. He gives like a guided meditation and they meditate together. And I thought that was such a cool concept. But he is the only person I literally know a lot of family, my whole lifetime. He is the only person I've ever heard parent-wise that has done meditation with their children. And I'm sure there are more out there, but I would be fascinated. I think Headspace is a really good route because you can have technology and have it playing and all these things where it is being used. But I've just been processing how to make it a cultural norm almost.
I'm not familiar with how to implement meditative practices with children. I'm not sure, but I think that any kind of intervention or practice that's used for adults needs to be adapted into a child's developmentally appropriate level. Obviously adults are going to be able to focus on things and regulate their own emotions and thoughts much better. Children are still undergoing rapid cognitive development, and they reach cognitive and physical milestones throughout their elementary school, middle school, high school years. So I think as a parent, one needs to be cognizant of the milestones that the children will reach and not place unrealistic expectations about how long they can meditate. If the parent meditates with the same duration as a child, the parent will probably be able to focus much longer, that kind of thing. And adapt the meditation, if it's guided, content, maybe to something that the child will find enjoyable, interesting, like Pokemon or, you know what I mean?
Totally, gamification, gamify it.
So I have no knowledge about how to translate an intervention from an adult to a child with respect to meditation, but I think those are some of the topics that you'd be concerned of for any population. If you were to adapt it to it, you need to be cognizant of their unique needs, developmental, what milestones, and what they would find interesting, their realistic capacities.
Realistic capacities, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's really, really good. That's exactly what I was looking for.
I think, a lot of parents I've seen, I think it's a beautiful thing to see parents read to their child. And that is a parent scaffolding a child's attention to the book.
Oh, you're exactly right. Of course it is.
And they're focused on the content of the book. They're visualizing the story and the parent is reading it. So they're helping to scaffold that child's attention onto something for a long period of time, and that not only builds the child's attention ability, sustained attention, but also visualization and verbal memory. I would think things like that, although I've not read formally any studies. Like babies that I used to speak to and read at an ICU in Boston, developmentally typical babies would smile and giggle and look at you when I would read something. But babies that had developmental delays, they would not like my voice, and they would be in almost like frustrated state when I read to them.
Really? What was the reasoning?
I think.
Did you ever know?
I don't know, but I noticed distinctly that some babies would smile at me when I read stories. Some babies would they would get very agitated.
I just pulled up kids book meditation. There's a ton.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Pretty
I
good
think it's
idea.
also important for the parent to not force the meditation on the child.
Great point.
I don't have a child, but children are very sensitive, and if they sense that parents are trying to impose this task onto them as like, to get them to Harvard or to the best school, then they're going to sense that it's going to be an aversive practice. Mm-hmm. So the parents, I think, need to be meditative and aware of their own reasons for wanting to do it with the child.
It's really true. I get it. It's a good point. Oh man, this is really good. I appreciate you doing this. This is really good.
It's a very interdisciplinary discussion, and I really appreciate it too.
Yeah. How can people get in touch with you?
My email is my full name, HIDEFUSA .OKABE @gmail.com. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Social? Do you have Instagram? What's your Instagram?
My Instagram name is the name of a Japanese warrior that was famous in southern Japan, where my family is from.
That's because Hida is a warrior. You guys better know. I'm telling you. Dude's a baller shot caller.
SATSUNA.HAYATO.
Cool.
So that's Satsuma Hayato. It's a warrior in southern Japan that I like to say that I share blood. That comes out a little bit when I drink a lot of Japanese sake.
When was the last time you drank sake?
I think I haven't had sake in a long time. I can't wait to go back to Tokyo and maybe get plastered on one occasion.
Is there a difference between like sake there and sake here?
No, I think they import it from Tokyo.
It's pretty like if I was to go get sushi tonight, because I'm craving a little bit of purple warm sake.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. Dude, I like it. I like it a lot. I appreciate you walking through this. There's a lot of different types of meditation. I know we're going to come back on a lot of this stuff. I know we'll probably do a few more of these type of podcasts back and forth, but on lots of different topics, because I think there's so much in emotional IQ in general. Like we touched on the different types of emotion. There's different types of emotional IQ out there. There's different types of intelligence. I think all of those things can be really cool topics to start hitting and discussing that I think people will be really interested in hearing.
Yeah.
Cool. Any events or anything coming up anything fun?
There will be a beer festival in Salt Lake City in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to that. A lot of the beer here in Salt Lake City are capped at 3% because of the laws. Mm-hmm. So
Go Mormons.
the beer festival is something that I'm looking forward to as somebody with high alcoholic tolerance.
Drink a lot, meditate a lot, balance.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Just letting yourself loose, but in different ways.
Exactly. Well, cool. Listen, if you want to follow me, it's danbrue.com. It's DANBRUE.com. You can check out this show as well, and a few other travel photos like we talked about. Lots of cool music and some emotional IQ articles and stuff like that. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. This is actually connecting, and we will be back next time with some emotional IQ topics. All right, thanks guys. Have a great one.